On today's Locked On Texan podcast, undrafted rookie free agent Jared Wayne from Pitt Football joins the show. Boy, we about to have a lot of fun because now we get into what the rookies got on their mind.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Friday episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Johnson Sports Guy Hickman. Of course, I'm joined by none other than Cody Davis. Want to take the time to shout out our everydayers. If you check out the show every day, we appreciate you guys. You are our family. And if you're new to the Locked On Texan podcast, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, along with all of the major podcasting platforms, which now includes Amazon as well. Without further ado, we're not even going to wait no time, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome Mr. Jared Wayne, wide receiver, undrafted rookie for the Houston Texans, to the Locked On Texan podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So it's just glad we got you on the show, right? Cody's going to kick off the show, honestly, but I'm glad we got you on the show because what Cody and I like to do here on the show is just play around with how you feel and play around with the football aspect. But before we get started with the X's and O's, how does it feel to hear your name, get that call and say, hey, we want you to be a Houston Texan?
It's a blessing, man. It's a dream come true. I've heard nothing but great things about the city of Houston. I haven't spent too much time in Texas myself. We obviously played a bowl game in El Paso, but from what I've heard, the city of Houston, the fans, the support behind the team is one of the best in the country. So it's a blessing. I can't wait to get down there and get things started.
Yes, sir. And Jared, before you come here to the city of Houston, another congratulations, because on Tuesday you got drafted to the Toronto Argonauts. That is part of the CFL. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? And is this, I don't know if you can share or not, but is this going to be like a decision to where you're going to spend time in Toronto? Do you going to have to come down here to the city of Houston? How's that going to work out?
I mean, obviously, being from Canada, it's really cool. It's a really cool process for myself, just being able to be selected in both leagues and, have interest from both leagues. So, like I said, it's nothing short of a blessing, but, my focus is on the Houston Texans right now. Like I said, I can't wait to get down there and get started,
So how much did the presence of your dad, going into looking at your dad who played in the CFL, how much of the game of football, the preparation, the training, the eating right, the competition, how much were you able to get from your dad, former CFL linebacker Patrick Wayne, who, by the way, has been checking this out on the low on Twitter? I've been seeing him. I can retweet a couple of tweets, so shout out to Dad. But how was that learning process coming from a professional athlete in your home?
Yeah, I owe a lot of my success to my dad for sure. This is his journey as much as it is mine. So, he's been there with me every step of the way, always pushing me to be better each and every day, making sure I'm doing the right things, like you said, in terms of nutrition, stretching, just not, the on-field aspect, but also off the field. He's really just taught me how to be a true professional and, take pride in my work. So I definitely owe a lot of my success to him.
Jared Wayne, wide receiver from Pitt's, coming off a career year, by the way, caught for over 1,000 receiving yards last year for the Panthers. Jared, can you just take us through what this whole entire draft process was like for you? Unfortunately, you did not have an opportunity to get drafted. However, it seemed like it did not take the Houston Texans long to call you up and sign you to a deal. And along with that, along with being an undrafted rookie, are you entering the league? Are you entering rookie minicamp that start next Friday? Are you entering the league with a little bit more motivation than you normally would, let's say, the rest of the draftees?
Sure. I mean, I'm always one who attacks every day, no matter the outcome or the situation. I'm gonna, you're always gonna get the same guy. So, this process has been it's been awesome. Talking with teams, I got a lot of interest from a lot of teams. A lot talked about drafting me as well, and then there was a little bit of a bidding war, once the draft concluded. But it honestly reminds me of, going throughout the high school to college process. Being from Canada, I wasn't highly recruited or anything like that. But yeah, I continued to progress at a steady pace. Every year was a steady incline in my production, in my play. So I feel like it's a similar kind of story right now. Going undrafted. I don't know what expectations are, but I just look to exceed those. So
Really quick, you mentioned like you had more of an option, undrafted rookie free agent.
mm-hmm.
Did that feel better to kind of say, you know what, I don't want to go to this situation. I'd rather go to this situation. And if it did, what were some of the things that played a role in your decision to say, you know what, Houston, who, if we're being honest, as of right now, doesn't necessarily have a star-studded wide receiving group, but Houston is a place that I really believe playing with the likes of rookie CJ Stroud that made you want to come here?
Yeah, for sure. It was a tough decision. Obviously, there were some other teams that I was interested in as well, but I really feel like what the Houston Texans have going on right now, and kind of their rebuild phase with who they drafted this year, kind of the situation in the room, the coaching staff. I just had great meetings with the coaching staff and really felt good about the situation. So yeah, it was a tough decision, and I was kind of being pulled in a bunch of different directions by other teams, but ultimately I knew this was the best situation for me.
I do want to ask you this question. What is it about the Texans coaching staff that they have now? Of course, it's headlined by head coach D'Amico Ryans, but everything that you just said, I could not help but to think that a lot of your teammates now, CJ, Will Anderson Jr., multiple players that the Houston Texans were able to draft and sign out after the draft, they all said the same thing. Once they met with the coaching staff, once they met with general manager Nick Caserio, they knew right off the bat this is where they wanted to be, and they were so grateful to be a part of this organization. What is it? What goes on in those meetings that just get so many of these young guys excited to come here?
Yeah. I think, it's a collective group. And what I mean by that is everybody's on board and chasing the same goal. And that's to win games and win a Super Bowl. So I think that was the biggest thing that I noticed. There isn't any egos in the building from a coach's standpoint. Everybody's trying to get better. Everybody's trying to elevate each other. And that's what Coach McDaniel said about the wide receiver room. Like when I step in it, it's everybody's encouraging everybody's positive about each other's performance. It's not obviously we're going to compete, but it's not pointing the finger at anybody or trying to bring anybody down. It's we're all in this together. It's all one common goal. So
I do have a question. I want to go back to college. How much did the presence of OC Coach Frank, who returned back to Pitt last season, how much of his return helped you in your game and you progress to have your career type of year that you did?
Sure. Yeah, definitely a big shout out to Coach Signetti. Our offense this year was very systematic and very pro style, which is going to help me pick up this playbook that I'm about to learn. So I thank him a lot for that and just, teaching me how the system works and detailing, my routes and the timing of the game and the feel for the game. Those are all things that he helped me with and helped me understand. So big thank you to Coach Signetti.
Can I piggyback off there really quick and say that when we look at the addition of CJ Stroud, I think Houston has done a very good job of indicating that they will run the ball. This will be a primary run-first team, kind of the same situation you were in last season at Pitt. And when I look at that situation you were in, you were very successful with the opportunities. When you look at how you were able to win some of those one-on-one situations, when your numbers were called, how were you able to prepare physically and mentally for those opportunities where it didn't come as often as some of the other top receivers that came out of draft?
Yeah. It's just a matter of being ready when your number's called. Having your number called shows trust from your coaches, trust from your teammates. So, putting the work in, ultimately things will take care of itself if you do put the work in. So, I didn't add any extra pressure or anything like that. I just went out there and played my game. But when my number is called, it's just about making the play. So,
ladies and gentlemen of the Locked On Texan family, that is a new family member. Can we call you cousin?
of course.
When I see you on the sideline, when Cody sees you on the sideline, we're going to call you cousin. But thank you for stopping by the Locked On Texas podcast. We really appreciate it. Can't wait for you to get down here to Houston, show off what you can do, man. I really believe that you have an opportunity. And we had the same conversation with CC from Locked On Steelers a couple of weeks back. I really believe that you have an opportunity to come into this organization and fight for a wide receiver position, fight for a spot on this depth chart, and really have an opportunity, maybe not this year, but maybe the following year, to be one of Houston's receivers for your young rookie quarterback, CJ Stroud. So I'm very excited to see what you do. Mr. Jerry Wayne, would you mind telling our listeners where they can find you on Twitter or all on your social media?
Yes, sir. On Instagram, you can find me at jwayne 2_. On Twitter, jwayne_5. Those are really the only two that I use, but check those out. And like I said, I appreciate you guys having me. Can't wait to get to Houston. Let's get to work, man. Let's do it.
Let's get it. Come out here eating out of the Houston food, man. Houston food and Houston women. Don't come out here doing all that. Football.
I hear you.
You'll make yourself a star, man.
Let's do it.
Looking for a delicious snack, but don't want all of the sugar or calories, then you need to try the best tasting protein bar on the market, Built Bar. If you're like me and you want to try healthier snack choices, you don't want to compromise on taste, I got something exactly what you're looking for. Built Bars and the Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and they taste amazing. Covered in 100% real chocolate, amazing flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, or cookies and cream, and only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. You can run into your local Walmart or Sam's Club while you're out running errands, and you can still get your specialty flavors at Built.com. Again, you can run into your local Walmart or Sam's Club if you're out running errands with your wife, husband, or you can get those specialty flavors online at Built.com.
Well, I actually, I'm in a B&B right now, and the cable's going in and out. So I really was getting text messages. So I was looking at the text messages, and people was updating me on like who we draft, and then everybody was like, "Oh man, y'all not playing in the draft." I'm like, "Golly, what's going on?" So y'all took a quarterback at 3. I said, "What? We did?" And then no, at 2. And then I was like, "Okay, all right." Then next thing you know, it's like, "Yeah, somebody we traded." I was like, we traded somebody, and I was like, okay. And then they got Will Anderson. I was like, okay, we got it then. I was like, all right. Then I was like, hold on, what did they do with that early second round pick? Oh, we traded away. But at the same time, hey, we got 2 studs. Like those game changers, like CJ, and that's his first name, right? I don't want to mispronounce it. Okay, and Will, like man, them guys was ballers, man, when they was young. Them franchise players right there. So I think they did. Nick and Miko did an amazing job.
That was Houston Texans newly acquired safety Jimmy Ward, came over from the San Francisco 49ers. He was
what
talking
kind of
about,
Wi-Fi does he have?
He said he's in the Airbnb as of right now. You guys heard he couldn't really watch the draft because things was going in. It was just a funny story, which I'm not gonna lie, Josh. I was wondering that same thing when he said it. Wi-Fi.
You gotta call the Airbnb people back and get that.
It's not even a Wi-Fi. I was like, you couldn't even watch it on your phone, like. But shout out to Jimmy, man, and I think he is going to be one of the best offseason acquisitions for the Houston Texans. By the way, heading into the 2022 campaign, he did crack the NFL's top 100 players of 2022. He came in at number 96, so that lets you know that the Houston Texans really went out there and got a really good, a really productive veteran free agents. We had an opportunity to speak to him on yesterday. That was basically his introductory press conference, and Ward talked about a lot of things, but the main thing that he talked about was watching the growth of DeMeco Ryans. As you guys know, Ward has been with the San Francisco 49ers throughout his entire career. In his 4th season, DeMeco Ryans was hired as a defensive quality coach, and he has seen Ryans improve every single year. And one of the things that he talked about that I love the most, that after Robert Saleh left as his defensive coordinator to take the job to become the new head coach of the New York Jets, Ward talked about the big shoes that DeMeco Ryans had to fill, because we all know Robert Saleh did a pretty good job as the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. My opinion, kind of like basically laid the foundation to the type of defense that they are running as of right now. But Ward said, you know, the one thing that he loved about DeMeco is the fact that not only did he live up to the expectations, but in some ways he felt that the 49ers defense got even better. And he said another thing that he loved most about the growth in DeMeco is his play calling. He said his first year, 2021, he said DeMeco was kind of hesitant, you know, to call out defensive plays and stuff. But in his second year, he said he was much more aggressive and much more confident. And John, you're going to love this. I had an opportunity to ask Ward, what is it about DeMeco Ryans coaching that makes that gives him an opportunity to pull the best out of his players? And this is what he had to say.
Well, to be honest, he'll call you out. You know, I feel like no matter the age, no matter how good a guy is, all pro, Pro Bowl, you know, you got to be able to take criticism. You got to be able to be coachable. And that's one guy who played this game and played it for a long time. And, you know, he knows what you've been through. So, and that's one guy a lot of guys look up to. You know, a lot of guys want to play 10 years in this league. A lot of guys want to be a starting player on defense, offense, or special team for that long in this league. So, and I think, you know, that's what he's a role model to a lot of guys. So that's why it's easy to, you know, listen to Miko. And that's why it's easy for him to push us too.
Ward said that he did have a lot of suitors in free agency. However, he wanted to join the Texans due to a relationship he has developed with Coach DeMeco Ryans since 2017.
One of my takeaways from the press conference was Jimmy Ward speaking about how happy he was that the Texans traded up for Will Anderson. He said, I was happy. D-line, you know what type of defense we're running. It's ran through the front. So the more guys you got up there that can get after the quarterback, it makes it easier for the DBs, easier for the linebackers. And the San Francisco 49ers were in the top half of the NFL in total sacks with 44, tied with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they also had the league leader in sacks last year with Bosa, the Bosa brother. And that also helped that team become the top defense in the NFL in terms of points allowed per game. They hovered around 16. This is a team that defensively, they were everywhere. They were fast. They were ferocious. And I love the fact that for Jimmy, he's letting you guys know the value. Well, what the belief behind the trading for Will Anderson, that value is DeMeco Ryans just needs the guy that can go out there and lead this team in sacks and help other guys across that defensive front go out there and be able to get more one-on-one situations, because eventually the type of player that I believe DeMeco Ryans believes he's getting out of Will Anderson is a double team type of guy. Like, you got a double team to slow him down. And so that'll free up other guys on this defensive line. We talk about John Bernard and write him off. This will probably be his best running mate since he became a Houston Texan, if he's able to see this year through, right? And that's a big thing. And we look at Jerry Hughes of his age. He is older. He had 9.5 sacks last year for Houston, led the team, but he is a year older. And for Houston, it is about creating foundational pieces for this team. And I think Will Anderson will be that. So to hear Jimmy Ward, safety, who had an opportunity, like when you look at what the San Francisco 49ers had defensively last year across their defensive front, of course, we see the Bosa brother, right? We see Nick Bosa. But then you got to look at last year, how good Charles Omenihu was, right? Eric Armstead, like, they had some great guys defensively up front that was able to help out the other two levels of the defense. And I want people to understand that for Will Anderson, it may not be an immediate impact, right? And so that may go against you guys' belief that, well, you traded up for him, you better be ready right now, day one. Listen, though the Houston Texans traded up for him, this is what they believe the future will look like. And the future does take time to get to, right? Like, tomorrow, you still got to work wake up, go to the gym, eat, go to work. You got 24 hours before you can get to tomorrow. So what I'm getting at is allow that young man to figure out the NFL, this coaching staff to put their hands on him to get him better. But for Jimmy to come out and say, hey, man, listen, the value of the defensive line is something that the Houston Texans fans hasn't really had since prime JJ when he had 16 sacks a couple of seasons ago, right? Remember that sack that basically won them the playoff game against the Bills?
Oh, boy.
That is what this defensive front is basically centered around. The front four is going to be able to, once they become dominant, allow the linebackers to flow in and out of their gaps, right? To be able to do things that you want your linebackers to do, play sideline to sideline when plays are breaking down. Allow your DBs to have that pressure up front put on the quarterback. And now all we really got to do is way back, sit for an errant mistake, and scream out, "I scared!" and we run the other way because we got an interception. These are some of the things that are important. So backing, got the backing from the general manager, got the backing from the head coach, of course, who wanted you here in the first place. We talk about Will Anderson. But for veteran Jimmy Ward, who's been around a lot of good football teams, for him to come out and say that, Cody, I think that speaks volumes. Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers, to the Locked On Texan podcast. We appreciate you guys for sticking around to, honestly, my favorite part of the show, the YouTube comments edition, where we talk to y'all through YouTube in the comments. First of all, I want to shout out to my man, Zachary 5206, everydayer from the Himalayas. Listen, all of my everydayers out there, all of our everydayers out there. Y'all know how we rocking and we love y'all. But I do want to scroll down to Lively's report. A couple of days ago, I said that Deshaun Watson's numbers, his last time he played football for the Houston Texans, were a little inflated. And wait, I'm sorry, this is actually from Texan Boy 9343. And I said that Deshaun Watson's number was inflated. He responded by saying, now wait. Now Watson numbers were inflated. Oh my God, what defense he had, what O-line, running back, etc. The funny thing is, CJ said his model is good after Watson. Stop the cap. Listen, so the Texans will go out there and score 31 points in a game, right? Like that happened. Mm-hmm. How many of those games were already lost that year? The defense was bad. The offensive line wasn't good. But when I say Deshaun Watson's numbers were inflated, I'm only saying that because there were times throughout that entire season where the game was already given away. And so, like, it's okay. His numbers were inflated. My belief in fullness.
I don't think you remember 2020 too well. No, well, the football season of 2020.
I do.
Because there was a lot of times when we were still in those games, i.e., the game against the Indianapolis Colts. I can't remember their schedule. The only time I could say that Deshaun numbers were, inflated because he was just doing stuff when the game was already out of hand was the second game of the season against the Baltimore Ravens and that third game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, when we knew without a shadow of a doubt that this was going to be a bad year. But after that, there were several times to where the Texans lost in like the final 5 minutes of the game. I wouldn't go that far as says Deshaun Watson numbers was inflated that year.
I'm looking at it right now, and
because I remember Ravens, they got their behinds handed to them, and the Steelers, they got their behinds handed to them, especially the Steelers, though, especially the Ravens game. But after that, the Packers was number 4 because that's who they lost to start 0-4.
Well, I will say this, man. I am anticipating to see what Deshaun Watson does for the Cleveland Browns this year. I'm not necessarily writing him off as of yet. Man, he, didn't play for 2.5 years, a year and a half. Finally came back and was very rusty. So I can't wait to see what he does in the AFC North. That is pretty competitive. Like they have Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, who just got his deal. Joe Burrow will be getting the deal at the end of this upcoming season. Deshaun Watson was the quarterback that kicked off a lot of these crazy deals that quarterbacks are getting right now with the guaranteed contract money. So I'm excited to see what he does in terms of football in that division. But I just believe that last year in Houston, those numbers were inflated just a little bit. And a lot of those numbers was just not winning football for this franchise overall. Let's see what else we got. Let's see what we got. So NHB Broadcast commented and said draft picks are always hit and miss, i.e. Brock Purdy, Joe Montana, Tom Brady are just a few huge hits that nobody expected would be good. Not sure how good D'Amico is as a picker and how much GM role he played, but Texans should be in jail for the robbery they committed on the Browns. If the Texans do what I think they could do, I see them in the playoffs either this season or next season at the latest. I think D'Amico will make this team a playoff team more times than not during his stay here. Texan fans have every reason to be optimistic. Shout out to NHB Broadcast because you have the comment of the week. Shout out to you, man. Like, that's what I'm talking about. A guy with faith, a man of faith, a man of perseverance and faith. I want to end it there. Like, because I believe the same thing, Cody. I've been saying, like, I think this team has finally turned over a new leaf with what they've been able to do. And to finally see it from somebody else outside of me and yourself, a true fan of the Texans, what better way to end and go to the weekend?
And I 100% agree with you because at the end of the day, yes, every single draft prospect picked from the first overall pick all the way to Mr. Irrelevant, it's nothing but a big gamble. At the end of the day, we do not know how these players are going to pan out. I mean, just take a look at the fact that arguably the third greatest player in franchise history, Arian Foster, he wasn't even drafted. He was an undrafted free agent who signed. So, yes, everything about what the Houston Texans did last week is a big gamble. However, I would like to say this. Yes, the Houston Texans should be in jail for the big robbery that they committed on the Cleveland Browns. Sean, we talked about the value that they have gotten from Deshaun Watson. Shout out to Nick Caserio once again for that. And I want to correct myself because I forgot a minor part of the trade, but at the same time, that might be the most important part of the trade because when you look at what the Houston Texans got in return from the Cleveland Browns, 3 first-round picks, 2 third-round picks, and a 4th-round pick in 2024. Before the trade was official, I forgot about this part. They added an additional 4th-round pick in 2022, and that pick ended up being Dameon Pierce. So as of right now, the Houston Texans sent Deshaun Watson to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for Dameon Pierce, Keon Green, Will Anderson Jr., Tank Dell, a 2024 first-round pick, and a 2024 4th-round pick as of right now. So, look, Sean didn't want to be here. He left. The Houston Texans got several great prospects back in return.
Right.
This might be one of those rare occasions where everybody from the disgruntled player to the franchise who wanted the disgruntled player to the unfortunate franchise that's getting rid of a franchise player. But when you take a look at what they got back in return, this might be one of those rare situations to where everybody is a winner.
Yeah. And I look at Nick Caserio, and he could possibly say this at the end of next season, going into the offseason. Hold up, wait a minute. Y'all thought I was finished? Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texan. Like us on Facebook as well. And subscribe to the Locked On Texan podcast on YouTube. Y'all keep running them numbers up to all of my everydayers out there, all of our Locked On Texan family. We really appreciate you from the bottom, middle, top of our heart.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.